I'm so glad I'm not working for the league.
Cameron Brink just pulled off the biggest power move in women's basketball history, ditching the WNBA for a $60 million EuroLeague payday. But this isn't just a contract signing. What's happening behind closed doors could send shockwaves through the entire league. And we have the receipts. Stay tuned. The $60 million shock that rocked the WNBA. Cameron Brink has just signed a jaw-dropping $60 million deal with EuroLeague women. And trust me, this isn't just a big payday. This is the kind of move that shakes an entire sport to its core. We're talking about a deal so massive, so unprecedented, that sources say even the WNBA commissioner herself was left speechless when the news broke. And yet, the money is only half the story, because the real shock is why Cameron left, and the behind-the-scenes confrontation that insiders say changed everything. So let's start with the moment everything changed. According to multiple European basketball insiders, the negotiations between Brink and UMMC Ekaterinburg, a powerhouse club in Russia's EuroLeague women, began quietly months ago. The team's owner, known for cutting some of the biggest checks in women's basketball history, reportedly approached Brink's agent with a simple question: what would it take to make her ours? And the answer shocked even him. We've confirmed through Eurohoops reporting that elite EuroLeague women teams are already paying their stars significantly more than the WNBA's maximum salary cap. But $60 million? That's unheard of, not just in women's basketball, but for almost any American athlete in a foreign league. What makes this so explosive is that Cameron was supposed to be one of the WNBA's cornerstone stars.
And if you want rebounding and rim protection, you can't get much better than Cameron Brink. She led the nation this past season with 3.7 blocks per game, averaged about 12 boards a game as well. She is going to be good in the WNBA right away.
Drafted early, celebrated as the next big thing, marketed heavily by the league, and yet, in her own words, she felt boxed in and treated like a commodity, not a person. Think about that for a second. One of the league's most marketable athletes is saying, publicly, she didn't feel valued. If that's what's happening to Cameron Brink, what's happening to the players you never hear about? Now let's talk about the WNBA's reaction, because this is where the story turns from shocking to infuriating. According to a source familiar with the situation, the WNBA commissioner was completely blindsided by the news. There was no farewell meeting, no coordinated press release. In fact, league executives reportedly found out about Brink's decision at the same time we did, when it hit the European sports wires. One insider described the commissioner's reaction in a single word: stunned. Another called it a gut punch. And yet, the league's official statement was bland and clinical, simply wishing Cameron the best in her future endeavors. No acknowledgement of what she'd accomplished, no reflection on why she was leaving, just a boilerplate goodbye. But here's the thing, this isn't just about the money or the league's PR strategy, it's about the hypocrisy. The WNBA constantly markets itself as the league that supports and uplifts women athletes. It pushes campaigns about player empowerment and valuing women's sports. And yet, when one of their brightest stars says she's leaving because she felt undervalued, the response is silence. If you've been following women's basketball for the last few years, you know Cameron Brink's career hasn't been some quiet underdog story. She's been front and center in media campaigns, a cover athlete, and a face on billboards. She was supposed to be the future.
You are a forward for the Los Angeles Sparks.
Yes.
You are a 3-time gold medalist with USA women's basketball, arguably one of the best dress players in the pregame tunnel.
Which is why this moment is so alarming, because it mirrors something we've seen before, not just in the WNBA, but in other sports where American talent is quietly heading overseas for bigger contracts, better treatment, and more respect. In the late 2010s, Brittany Griner, Brianna Stewart, Diana Taurasi, all of them spent their off seasons in Russia or Europe because the paychecks there dwarfed what they earned in the WNBA. But here's the twist. Most of them still came back to the WNBA for the season. Cameron Brink isn't coming back at all. That's the kind of decision that forces you to ask, what's really going on inside the league? And here's where the bombshell drops. One former team staffer, who worked closely with Brink in her rookie year, told us on Background that the relationship between Cameron and the league office was never as warm as it looked from the outside. In their words, she was a marketable star they didn't know how to handle. They wanted her to smile for the cameras, but not to speak her mind. It's a pattern we've seen before. Leagues loving the image of their athletes, but not the reality of their opinions. And for Cameron, who has been outspoken on issues from mental health to pay equity, that's a problem. She wasn't just the face of a brand. She wanted to shape the conversation, and that's when tensions started to rise. Multiple sources have confirmed that earlier this year, Cameron had a closed-door meeting with WNBA leadership where she made her frustrations clear. According to one witness, it was icy from start to finish. By the end of it, she was reportedly more determined than ever to look for opportunities overseas. The rest, well, $60 million speaks louder than any press release. Let's zoom out for a second. The WNBA's salary cap for the 2025 season is just over $1.4 million per team, and the maximum player salary is around $252,000. That's right. A top-tier American women's basketball player can't even crack $250,000 a year in her own domestic league. Now compare that to the EuroLeague women's top clubs, where deep-pocketed owners, often backed by corporate giants or politically connected businesses, can write checks without worrying about league-wide caps. That's how you get numbers like Cameron Brink's $60 million deal. In the EuroLeague, if an owner wants you badly enough, they don't just match your market value, they blow it out of the water. And here's the kicker. These contracts often include perks that U.S. athletes can barely dream of. We're talking first-class travel, luxury housing, personal chefs, bonuses for non-basketball appearances, and even full-time security. In Brink's case, one European agent told us, they're not just paying for her basketball, they're paying for her brand. But the financial gap is only part of the story. When you talk to players who've made the jump overseas, a common theme emerges: respect. And this is where the WNBA, despite its public messaging, consistently comes up short. Take what one former American EuroLeague player told The Athletic: when you're over there, you're treated like a star. People recognize you in the streets. Your games are packed. The media covers you like you're an NBA player. Contrast that with the WNBA, where attendance for some teams has hovered under 4,000 fans per game, and national broadcasts still bury games in hard-to-find time slots. Cameron Brink didn't just see the pay difference. She saw the prestige gap, and in her eyes, the WNBA wasn't doing enough to close it. There's also an uncomfortable truth about the league's business model. The WNBA is heavily reliant on its partnership with the NBA, which provides both funding and media exposure. But that dependency also creates limitations. Sources inside the league say that sponsorship deals, marketing campaigns, and even game schedules often have to align with NBA priorities. That can mean less flexibility to cater to individual player brands. And for a rising star like Brink, who has lucrative endorsement deals and a growing social media empire, that's a problem. As one marketing executive put it, in the EuroLeague, she's the main event. In the WNBA, she's competing with NBA headlines, playoff pushes, and a league office that sees her as one piece of a bigger puzzle. So why should you care about this if you're just a casual fan? Because Cameron Brink's departure could trigger something the WNBA has never faced before: a star drain. If one marquee player can walk away for 10 times her domestic salary, what's stopping others? Brianna Stewart, Aja Wilson, Sabrina Ionescu all have name recognition, all have endorsement deals, and all have the leverage to negotiate with overseas clubs. If even 2 more top-tier stars make the jump, it could force the WNBA into a crisis it can't PR spin its way out of. And for a league that has fought for decades to establish itself in the American sports landscape, that's not just bad optics, that's an existential threat. In the next part, we're going deep inside EuroLeague women's money machine, how billionaire owners have turned it into the most lucrative destination for female basketball players, and how this could lead to a bidding war that forever changes women's sports. How Europe outbid America for Brink. If the first section was the explosion, this is the smoke that reveals just how deep this crater goes. Because while Cameron Brink's $60 million contract shocked fans in the US, in Europe's top women's basketball circles, the reaction was more of a smirk than a gasp. They've seen this playbook before. In fact, they wrote it. Let's pull back the curtain on the EuroLeague women, a competition that, to the casual American fan, might sound like just another overseas league. But to those inside the sport, it's something closer to an ultra-exclusive club for billionaire owners with one shared obsession: winning at any cost. And when I say any cost, I mean it literally. First, the basics. EuroLeague Women is the highest professional level of women's basketball in Europe, governed by FIBA. It features 16 elite teams from across the continent, many of which are bankrolled by corporations, oligarchs, or even entire city governments. These aren't just sports teams. They're prestige projects, political tools, and in some cases, billionaire vanity plays. Unlike the WNBA, which operates under strict salary caps, collective bargaining agreements, and a tightly controlled economic system, the EuroLeague has almost no such restrictions. If a wealthy owner wants to hand out a contract so large it would make an NBA rookie blush, there's no league office stopping them. The result is a free market arms race, where deep pockets often matter as much as deep rosters. Take UMMC Ekaterinburg, the team that signed Brink. For over a decade, they've set the standard for aggressive recruitment, poaching the biggest names in the sport. Diana Taurasi, Brittany Griner, both have worn the orange and green. Their owner, a conglomerate tied to Russian mining magnate Iskander Makhmudov, whose net worth runs comfortably in the billions, and their spending is just as eye-watering. In some years, the team's payroll has surpassed the entire operating budget of a WNBA franchise. For EuroLeague's power players, that's the point. It's not about balancing the books. It's about building a roster so stacked, the only acceptable outcome is absolute domination. That's the level of financial firepower Brink just joined. The WNBA's top salary, about $252,000, might sound decent until you realize some EuroLeague contracts pay double that for a single month. Add to that endorsement opportunities opportunities, tax advantages, and lifestyle perks, and the choice starts looking less like a gamble and more like a no-brainer. European clubs also cover housing, transportation, and often throw in appearance bonuses for things like charity events or local sports clinics. The result? A player's take-home earnings can balloon well beyond the base contract. And for someone like Cameron Brink, whose brand value is still rising, the overseas stage offers something the WNBA simply can't: constant, undivided attention. As one agent told Sports Business Journal, in the EuroLeague, your star isn't competing with NBA headlines, NFL playoffs, or March Madness. She is the headline. It's not just about writing big checks. EuroLeague recruitment is strategic, targeted, and sometimes downright personal. Brink's courtship reportedly began with a discreet dinner in Monaco during last year's off-season, attended by 2 representatives from UMMC Ekaterinburg and a well-connected European sports agent. No contracts were discussed. No dollar amounts were floated. Instead, they painted a picture of life overseas, playing in front of packed arenas with fans who treat every game like a playoff, traveling in private jets to cities like Prague, Valencia, and Istanbul, living in luxury apartments steps from historic landmarks. By the end of that evening, Brink wasn't just considering the financial upside, she was imagining the lifestyle. And that's the genius of the EuroLeague pitch. They don't sell you a job, they sell you a dream. Brink isn't the first, she's simply the loudest. Diana Taurasi famously skipped an entire WNBA season in 2015 because her Russian team, also UMMC Ekaterinburg, paid her more to rest for their playoffs. Brittany Griner played for the same team for multiple off-seasons before her high-profile detainment in 2022. Brianna Stewart split her career between the Seattle Storm and Dynamo Kursk for years, chasing both championships and bigger paychecks. The pattern is clear. When the EuroLeague wants a player, they get them. The only variable is how much it will cost. But Brink's deal sets a new precedent, not just for size, but for exclusivity. By choosing to leave the WNBA entirely, she's signaling to other players that it's possible to build a career and a legacy outside the US. Here's what keeps WNBA executives up at night. If Cameron Brink thrives overseas, dominates in games, grows her brand, lands more endorsements, she becomes living proof that the league is no longer the pinnacle of women's basketball. And if that perception takes hold, it's only a matter of time before more players follow. Imagine a future where the WNBA's all-star game is missing 3 or 4 of its biggest names because they're in Europe making triple the money. Imagine rookie phenoms being drafted and immediately negotiating with EuroLeague teams instead of WNBA franchises. It sounds extreme, but that's exactly what happened in men's soccer decades ago when wealthy European clubs began outbidding domestic leagues. The best talent didn't stay home. They went where the money, respect, and spotlight were waiting. There's another factor most US fans underestimate: culture. Many players who've spent time overseas talk about the experience as transformative. The slower pace of life, the sense of community, the passionate fan bases, it all contrasts sharply with the grind of the WNBA's schedule and travel. For a player like Brink, who's known for her off-court interests in fashion and media, Europe also offers access to entirely new networks. Milan Fashion Week, a 2-hour flight, collaborating with European luxury brands? No problem when you're based in the same region. The result is a lifestyle that isn't just about basketball. It's about building a multifaceted career. Her first season in EuroLeague will likely be the most scrutinized debut in the competition's history. Every stat line will be dissected, every public appearance analyzed. But she's entering with more leverage than most: a massive contract, full creative control of her brand, and a fan base curious to see if she can dominate outside the WNBA system. UMMC Ekaterinburg's front office is reportedly already working on media campaigns to position her as the face of EuroLeague women. That means commercials, billboards, and even a potential docuseries following her transition to European basketball. If it all works, the WNBA will be facing the most serious player retention crisis in its history. Brink's exit sparks a player uprising. Behind the official "We wish Cameron the best" statement from the WNBA was a very different reality, one filled with emergency meetings, internal memos, and a growing sense of dread. On the surface, the league played it cool. They issued the kind of bland, PR-polished farewell you could slap on a coffee mug. But inside the offices in New York and inside the Zoom calls with owners, the tone was anything but calm. Because while the WNBA has weathered player departures before, Brink's exit wasn't just a loss, it was a public indictment. She didn't just leave for more money. She left saying, in so many words, that the WNBA wasn't giving her the respect, flexibility, or platform she deserved. She wrapped it in polite language, but to anyone who's followed the league closely, the subtext was unmistakable. And for a league that brands itself around player empowerment, that message was nuclear. Within 24 hours of the EuroLeague announcement, the WNBA commissioner reportedly convened a closed-door meeting with team owners and player representatives. According to Sports Business Journal, the tone was urgent. The league had to get ahead of the story before it snowballed into a referendum on whether the WNBA was even worth playing in anymore. The optics were bad, the whispers were worse. A source present at that meeting told us bluntly, the mood was panic. Everyone was asking, who's next? Marketing executives were instructed to quietly boost promotion for other stars, especially those still on rookie contracts, to reassure sponsors and fans that the pipeline of talent was secure. Social media teams were told to flood timelines with highlights, interviews, and feel-good content about the next generation of WNBA talent. But that was the public-facing strategy. Behind the scenes, executives were combing through player contracts, looking for any signs of EuroLeague interest. They weren't just worried about stars in their prime. They were watching second and third-year players with breakout potential. If someone like Brink could bolt this early in her career, who was truly off the table? If the WNBA thought the locker rooms would rally behind the league, they were wrong. Several high-profile players publicly congratulated Brink on social media. Brianna Stewart called the deal a massive win for women's basketball worldwide. Sabrina Ionescu reposted the news with a bag-secured emoji. These weren't empty gestures. They were subtle endorsements. And for a league trying to downplay the idea that Europe was a better option, those endorsements stung. Privately, agents were fielding calls from players who wanted to know what kind of offers could they get overseas. One agent told The Athletic that in the week after Brink's deal went public, she received inquiries from 6 different WNBA starters about potential EuroLeague opportunities. 6 starters in 1 week. The message was clear. Brink hadn't just opened a door. She'd blown it off the hinges. Here's what the WNBA doesn't want you to know. They've already begun quietly exploring ways to restructure player salaries to keep stars in the league. According to internal discussions obtained by ESPN, one proposal involves introducing designated player exceptions, similar to the NBA's Supermax contracts, that would allow teams to offer their biggest stars significantly higher salaries without breaking the cap. Another proposal on the table, loosening restrictions on off-season play, giving players more flexibility to earn internationally without risking league penalties. The problem? Both ideas would require renegotiating the collective bargaining agreement with the players' union, a process that could take months, if not years. And in that time, more players could follow Brink's lead. Publicly, the WNBA has framed Brink's departure as an individual career decision, emphasizing that the league still offers the highest level of competition in the world. But let's be honest, if the WNBA truly believed it was still the pinnacle, there wouldn't be such urgency behind closed doors, and they wouldn't be quietly briefing sponsors about contingency plans in case other stars leave. That's the part the league can't spin. In the modern era of women's basketball, the highest level is no longer confined to one continent. This isn't just a WNBA problem, it's an American sports problem. For decades, US-based leagues assumed they were the final destination for elite talent. The NBA, NFL, MLB all operate under the belief that their competition abroad is negligible. But the rise of deep-pocketed overseas leagues, combined with the global reach of social media, is rewriting the rules. Brink's $60 million deal is proof that top athletes can bypass American leagues entirely and still become global stars. And for women's sports, where the pay gap is widest, the temptation is even greater. If you're a 22-year-old phenom deciding between $250K in the WNBA and $5 million a year in Europe, with first-class travel, luxury accommodations, and full creative control over your brand, what's the argument for staying home? The WNBA will never say it outright, but Brink's departure highlighted something uncomfortable. Their relationship with star players is transactional, not transformational. Yes, the league will market you, as long as you fit neatly into their brand strategy. Yes, they'll put you on posters, as long as you don't challenge their schedule, pay structure, or rules. Brink wasn't the first to notice this. She was just the first to make her exit into a statement, and that statement hit a nerve with both fans and fellow players. If 2 or 3 more stars sign exclusive EuroLeague deals in the next 2 years, the WNBA faces sponsorship risk. Brands pay for recognizable faces, lose them and ad buys shrink, TV contract issues, networks won't pay top rates of star, power dwindles, fan engagement drops. Casual fans tune in for the stars they know. This isn't just about filling seats, it's about the long-term viability of the league. From her side, Brink is already leaning into the power her decision has given her. European sports media reports she's in talks to host a bi-weekly video series documenting her life in Ekaterinburg, blending basketball footage with behind-the-scenes looks at her travels, training, and brand deals. If that series happens and finds a US streaming partner, the WNBA's worst-case scenario becomes reality. One of their most marketable former stars building a bigger fan base outside their ecosystem. At the end of the day, Cameron Brink's story isn't just about a $60 million check, it's about leverage. She saw a system that undervalued her, and she walked away, not in anger, but in confidence. Whether you see her as a trailblazer or a defector, one thing is certain. She's forced the WNBA to confront a question it's been avoiding for years. What happens when the rest of the world decides it can treat women's basketball better than America can? That's not just a Cameron Brink question. That's the question that could define the next decade of the sport. And with that, we've come to the end of this deep dive. For more juicy content like this, smash that subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications, and check out the cards showing on your screen for more videos. Don't forget to comment your thoughts below.